If you are hunting trouble, lad, you found it.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a new video. In this video, I'm going to be doing a tier list and ranking of all the launchers and AT rifles in Enlisted. Originally, this was envisioned as a video about the general support weapons, sort of like that entire tech tree. But when doing scripting and research, I figured out it would have been very, very repetitive because pretty much all of the flamethrowers and mortars are just like reskins of each other. They're not very statistically different enough to even be worth talking about, which I don't think is the case at all for most of the launchers or AT rifles, right? Uh, so yeah, instead I'm just going to be doing the launchers and the rifles. How this is going to work is that there's going to be a little weapon cam in the bottom left whenever I'm talking about a specific weapon to show it on the firing range in action, and I'm going to be listing out the stats, making sure to cut out repetitive stats if there's like a bunch of repetition, right? Like if a whole weapons class has like a recoil of just 50 plus 50 or something like that. But yeah, still, if you guys want more context, just watch the pistols tier list video, and it'll pretty much give you an idea of what this one's going to be like. And yeah, I might actually go back and remake my regular tier list eventually, because some of my opinions have changed after putting in like almost 100 more hours into the game since then. They're overall the same, though. I think mortars and flamethrowers both still aren't very good. I think how they can improve them is definitely just by making it to where more different squads, can take one flamethrower trooper or one mortar trooper. Something like that. Just being able to like take either one of those, I think would make either one of them a lot more viable and a lot more worth researching. Because when you just get sort of to that point in the tech tree, it's like, why spend 5 hours grinding to research the Type 97 flamethrower you're never going to touch or use in your entire life playing the game for like the rest of forever. But yeah, that'll be it for the intro, and on to the tier list. We're going to be starting off with all of the anti-tank rifles first, and then doing the launchers second, in order of faction, of course. Alright, the first anti-tank rifle we got is the PTRD 41, and the stats are going to be the following: a hit power of 150, muzzle velocity of 1020, which is pretty much a. Okay, never mind. I wouldn't say anything is average with the AT rifles, it does vary a lot. And then the rounds per minute is 15, which is staggeringly low, but not as low as the two German ones later. A reload time of 4, which is pretty average, I think. Yeah, it is like the average. Shot deviation on every single anti-tank rifle is 5. Not gonna bring that stat up again, they're all 5. The recoil, vertical plus horizontal, which is the order it's gonna be in, is 280 plus 120, so it kicks really hard but doesn't matter that much since it's a single shot weapon anyway. The magazine size is 1, and the armor penetration at close range is 40, and it goes all the way down to 5 at the lowest. So what do I think about the PDR 41? Yeah, it's terrible. It's terrible. It's just like genuinely. I'm not gonna make its own tier or be like that rude to it, but I think it is the worst like single anti-tank thing in the entire game. The only time you will ever get kills with a PDR 41 is when you hit the exact weak spot on like a BR1 tank, a BR2 tank if you're lucky, and don't even try. Don't even try with a BR3 tank. You're not getting through that armor at all unless you're like right next to it. That's like the only time the gun is effective is if you remember the exact spots the shells for the tank are in, or if you just run up to the back to it and try to shoot the engine and hope it doesn't have like a super well armored engine, because I know some of the tanks do. Probably not in BR1 though, but you know, at least in BR3, some of the tanks do have pretty well armored engine compartments. But yeah, it's gonna be an F tier. I do not recommend it at all. You know, as soon as you get, just ignore. You know what? No, never mind. Just on to the next AT rifle. Amazing recording session, by the way. This is starting off amazing. But yeah, on to the next AT rifle. Alrighty then, the next AT rifle we have here is the PTRS-41, which has a hit power of 150 again. Muzzle velocity is 1020, same as the last one. Rounds per minute has got a dramatic upgrade, being 75 this time, which is like the second highest in class, or shares a spot with being the highest in class when it comes to rounds per minute. A reload time of 4, which is the exact same as the regular one, which you would think it would actually take a shorter amount of time to reload a clip than it would a single shot. Excuse me, you think it would take a shorter amount of time to reload a single shot than it would like an entire clip, but you know, I'm not a balance developer guy. The recoil is the exact same as the RD41. The magazine size is 5, so you're getting, you know, 4 extra shots. But that is probably honestly worse, because if you try to shoot them in succession without waiting like a whole 2 or 3 seconds for the gun to resteady, you're not going to be hitting them at all unless you're in close range. And in which case, you know, you're probably not going to be hitting exactly what you wanted to hit either if you were trying to be a marksman with it, which is what you should be doing with anti-tank rifles. The armor penetration is identical, 40 at close range, and it goes all the way down to 5. So what do I think about the RS-41? Honestly, it's not even better than the RD-41. I'm gonna be honest. Like, I never really saw a significant performance difference with it compared to its contemporary. Besides just the convenience of having more ammo in the magazine and not having to always reload. That's literally it. That's like literally the only difference. That, and whenever you run up to a tank to sort of you know, if you even get a chance to get close enough to jump on top of it and unload your gun into the engine or what have you, whatever strategy you want to use to make anti-tank rifles not terrible. Yeah, it's better at that, but that's literally it. It's not something that's worthy of putting it into C tier, so I'm gonna have to give the PTRS 41 an F tier. Yeah. Next up, we have the Boys anti-tank rifle, and the stats for it are the following: a hit power of 150, a muzzle velocity of 880, which is second worst in class, so good job. An RPM of 33, which you'd think for something that's semi-automatic and magazine fed, it would at least have that really good fire rate like the PTRS 41 has, but no. 33 is like really sluggish, decently sluggish. A reload time of 4.4, as if the gun wasn't struggling enough. It now has to have the longest reload time of everything in the class. A recoil of 280 plus 70, which is it's not as bad as the Russian anti-tank rifles, but it's still terrible. A magazine size of 5, and I think you get 10 or 15 in reserve, so a decent amount of ammo, honestly. The armor penetration is 30 at the closest and 5 at the lowest, so you know it's a downgrade from the Russian anti-tank rifle, which it probably shouldn't be a downgrade from, given that the build quality and like the amount of time and research they probably put into it was a bit more than something that was like slapped together in a few months for the sake of the war. But yeah, what do I think about the Boers ATR? It's literally just like the PTRS 41 but worse. Like if I did actually have a tier below F, it would probably go in there. I don't really recommend even using AT at BR1. I really would just, like, as allies, really would just wait till you got the bazooka instead of even using the boys ATR at all, because it really is that bad. Like, I think for, like, the solid, like, 2 or 3 weeks, maybe it was 2 weeks. The 2 weeks I was straddled with carrying it around in my arms like a burden from hell. I just saw absolutely no. I saw maybe 1 or 2 vehicle destructions max while using the boys ATR. It's just that bad. Like, I genuinely saw more with the RD41. And by the way, I forgot to say, for the RD41, the sight picture is terrible on it. It's god awful. Like, it's very awkward to even aim the thing. So that docks even more points off of that. You know, I forgot to say it earlier, but I'm not going back to re-record. But yeah, Boars ATR F tier, not really worth using genuinely. You guys are seeing a theme. If you guys are seeing a theme with the anti-tank rifles, congratulations, you have really good pattern recognition. But yeah, the boys anti-tank rifle is an F tier. Alright, the next anti-tank rifle is going to be the PVZ, excuse me, not Plants vs. Zombies, the PVB 38 German anti-tank rifle with a hit power of 100, which is tied with lowest in class with its successor, a muzzle velocity of 1,200, which is actually the highest in class, tied with its successor also, an RPM of 12, so very slow, very slow. A reload time of 3.6, which is time between shots, by the way, because it shows in-game that has a continuous magazine, but I assure you that is not a continuous magazine. It might as well just have that set as reserve ammo, which is what I think they should honestly just do with it, you know, because it is pretty much a single-shot weapon, right? But yeah, 3.6 is actually pretty good. Pretty good. It's the lowest in class, I think, tied with its successor. And the recoil for vertical plus horizontal is also really good, being 50 plus 50, which is basically, you know, nothing. In a magazine size, quote unquote, of 10. And I think you get 10 in reserve, so you basically have to swap to the next ammo pool or something like that. In armor penetration of 35 to 5 at the lowest. So yeah, a little bit better than the boys' anti-tank rifle, but not as good as the Russian anti-tank rifles. Overall, it's just, like, I don't even have commentary that I can really give for most of the anti-tank rifles because of their general stinkiness. Like, you see it in the video, though, to like, make any actual use out of them, you just have to get lucky enough to get behind the tank and just, you know, blast around into the engine and hope it sets it off. Or just get, like, a really lucky shot at either wherever the ammo is kept in the tank, which you can remember if you have a brain big enough for that, right? You can probably remember that pretty easily. And sometimes neck shots do work, or do at least take out one of the crew, but that really doesn't mean much unless you're, like, fighting a tank that is not very good, that's like a BR1 or 2 tank that only has like 3 or 4 crew to begin with. Because with 5 or 6 crew tanks, yeah, the fact that the random guy who is like loading the extra shells got knocked out isn't really like relevant at all, because you can just, you know, you didn't really need him, and if like the driver gets taken out, literally any other random guy who's in the tank can do his job just as well, pretty much. Because I think personally driver perks are a meme and like are not really that useful. But yeah, that'll be it for the PVB 38, and on to the 39. The PZB 39. I'm sorry if I mispronounced it earlier. I probably did, but you know, it's whatever. Who cares? But yeah, the hit power on it's going to be 100. Muzzle velocity is identical. Rounds per minute identical to the last one. Reload time, everything's identical, right? It's just you get more reserve ammo. That's literally the only difference. It's F tier just like the last one. I'm sorry if I didn't even say the tier for the last one because it's getting really late. I genuinely cannot remember if I said the last one was F tier, but they're basically identical, right? It's like there's not even a difference between them, you know. At least with the two Russian anti-tank, you know, the magazine, having a magazine at least made some difference for convenience. But since they're both one-shot rifles with identical reload time, and it's just, oh wow, you get all of this reserve ammo instead of having to do a magazine swap. It's like not even a difference, man. That's like, I can't even call it a convenience. Like, it's just, yeah, it's just F tier. Okay. Alrighty, for the last anti-tank rifle, we have the Type 97 Japanese anti-tank rifle. With a staggering hit power of, I think it's the single highest damage in the entire game for at least like a man-portable weapon, right? 250, that's crazy. You could line up like a dozen guys and a single bullet would probably just annihilate them all if you hit them. Which I'm not sure if that's actually a feature, but it probably is, maybe. I don't know, I haven't tested it. Muzzle velocity is lowest in class at 750, which is only 30 higher than the muzzle velocity of the average starting rifle in Enlisted. So yeah, kind of bad. But it honestly does not mean much besides like when you try to track targets from a much longer range is the only real difference it makes in combat. Rounds per minute of 75, so you know, very fast. You can crank it. You can absolutely crank out shots with this thing. A reload time of 4, which is, you know, average. A recoil vertical plus horizontal of 210 plus 90. So 70 less on the vertical, but 40 more on the horizontal. So I think it evens out to being, usually it feels better to shoot, right? It has a magazine size of 7 and I think 21 in reserve. The highest armor penetration of the class at 45, with the lowest being 10. What do I think of the Type 97 AT rifle? I think I already mentioned this in the tier list video, but I love this gun, okay? I'm going to be very biased in this list, if you can't tell. And I'm very biased towards this gun. I think it's the absolute best anti-tank rifle in the game. And feels good to use even in BR3. It's like comfortable to use in BR3. Even. Like genuinely. It is the best anti-tank rifle besides that one specific premium squad German anti-tank rifle that I can't remember the name of. That's like super overpowered. But yeah, still, you can use it for taking out tanks. Very good at immobilizing tanks. It usually only takes 1 or 2 shots to completely immobilize a tank. And it's very easy to hit those shots because I feel like the sight picture is a lot better, a lot more readable than a lot of the other anti-tank rifle sights. You know, if you mount it on something, you can lay it on the ground and use the, I think it's called a sleigh mount or sleigh bipod or something. You know, it's like big snowshoes or whatever. You can lay it against the ground. You can use it as a semi-auto if you're really sadistic. And it genuinely works well as a semi-auto too if you're next to an ammo box and have a place to mount it on. You can genuinely just use it as a semi-auto. Like I remember one time I was on that map that's sort of like the beach with the big mountain hill thing on the side of it. And I just camped with it on the side of a hill next to an ammo box, and I got like 30 something kills on that one soldier. It was kind of crazy. But yeah, I really like it. I really like it. It's good for tanks. It's good for sitting down and shooting down planes with if they get close enough, which a commenter mentioned in the last video I did. You know, I think that the tier list I did for the classes, and yeah, you can. It's a valid strategy. So for all of these reasons, I'm going to have to put it right into B tier. The only anti-tank rifle that isn't an F tier. Congratulations. The concept isn't a terrible concept. And I think they kind of had to make it good. because even less people would be willing to play Japan, especially in the early game, if they didn't have a decent anti-tank option at BR1. So yeah, it's going to be B tier for the Type 97. Alrighty then, on to the launchers, the medium potatoes, which you actually came here to this video to listen about. And the hit power stat has been replaced with a warhead boom, which is pretty self-explanatory. It's like the explosion power of the warhead. And also, splash damage is a new stat. And another addendum I must add is that armor penetration is kind of vague on some of these. So for some of them, I'm going to say question mark at the end, because how the stats are written on the actual sort of stat readout layout thing is very, very different from the rest of the weapons, and I think that's sort of a carryover from the game's earlier point of existing, right? You know, from old Enlisted back in like 2020, 2021, whatever. Back when the stats either worked or were just written down differently. So yeah. But yeah, the first weapon we have on the list is going to be the M1 bazooka, which is for Russia and the Allies both. The warhead boom on it is going to be 18, muzzle velocity 82, rounds per minute 48. Ooh, excuse me. Reload time of 2.6, which is actually one of the fastest, which surprised me. It actually is the fastest in class, so good job to you, M1 Bazooka. The shot deviation on every rocket launcher is going to be 5, so I'm never going to mention that again. So yeah, just remember 5. The shot deviation on every rocket launcher besides 2 is going to be 50 plus 50. So it's not even like applicable unless I specifically mention it. But yeah, you do not have to worry about recoil on most rocket launchers because they are, you know, recoilless weapons, pretty much. The magazine size for the bazooka is 1. And the splash damage for the bazooka and everything else is what is written down here on the stats is 40, 40, or 41, and scales all the way up to 44.5. I don't know if it means like how many meters the splash damage is effective, or how much. I don't even know if it means like how much damage it does. I'm guessing against vehicles because it does very little against actual people, I've noticed. And the armor penetration on the bazooka is 20 question mark. So yeah, just take that stat with a grain of salt. But what do I think about the bazooka? I think it's perfectly fine. It's a perfectly usable weapon. Perfectly serviceable for early game vehicle taking down. I think it's actually optimal to use on Russia. You can, of course, replace it later if you want to on Allies, but I think it's what you should be using on Russia until you unlock the Panzerfaust. But yeah, the bazooka is perfectly serviceable, perfectly usable, not at all offensive. It's going to be right in B tier. Next up, we have the British spring-loaded abomination that is the Piat, which is a spring-powered rocket launcher that was made for commandos because it was way more portable than a traditional, you know, the type of bazooka America had designed pretty much. But yeah, the stats are going to be the following on it. A warhead boom of 18. And yeah, you know what? I'm just not going to mention the warhead boom status. It's literally 18 on every rocket launcher besides the Type 4. So I'll mention it when we get to the Type 4. But it's, yeah, warhead boom, 18 on pretty much all of them. But continuing on, the muzzle velocity on the Piat is going to be 52.5, which is actually, I think, second lowest. No, third lowest in the entire class. However, it has a staggering rounds per minute of 120, which is insane. You know, if you want to somehow manage to shoot that many Piat rockets that fast, I don't even know how they got that metric in real life. Like a little side tangent, I don't know how they get the metrics for rounds per minute unless they just have like a bunch of, you know, loaded guns next to each other and they start firing the last one after the previous one got emptied, which is, I'm guessing, how they used to do it back in the day. or they just calculate with math, either one. But that's still like an insane rounds per minute for a launcher, but kind of non-applicable because you only have like 5 ammo for it total anyway. Reload time of 3.1, which is average pretty much. The recoil is going to be 318 plus 212, which is actually super high, the highest in class, and like one of the two things that even has an actual recoil stat. Magazine size is 1. Armor penetration is 80, which let me check my chart here. Which is actually pretty low, so yeah, not very good on armor penetration. It's like double the amount pretty much that the Type 97 AT rifle is, but that's excusable because you can do it from a much longer range away. So yeah, the armor penetration on it is not great. However, one big thing the Piat does have over the bazooka, which I think kind of puts them on par, is that you can run with it. You can run with it. There's only like, I think 3 or 4 launchers that you can even run with. So yeah, that is a bonus because it lets you be more mobile and lets you position yourself better if you're trying to immediately go in for a launcher shot against an enemy vehicle. I'd say it's sort of a side grade to the bazooka. It's like more of a playstyle thing. If you like to get closer to an enemy tank, then take the Piat. I remember it used to be a lot worse back when it had this like weird... It was either a sort of bug with a shot deviation or a bug with a firing delay that made it very awkward to handle. I would have definitely put that incarnation of the Piat into F tier or C tier. But after they fixed it, because it does feel a lot better to use. I don't know, I might just be schizoing out and I was just like worse at using it back then. But I could have sworn it felt different like to handle. But yeah, all these things, in sort of regards to each other, I think it's a perfectly decent side grade to the bazooka. And I would also put it into B tier. Alrighty, so the next weapon on the docket is going to be the N9 bazooka, which is an upgraded version of the M1 bazooka. And the stats are going to be the following. Muzzle velocity of 120, which is the absolute best in class, which is probably the reason why it feels so accurate. Besides just the sight being good too, it feels like you can definitely get a lot better longer range hits off with it compared to the M1 or the Piat both. A reload time of 2.8, which is, I think, yeah, the second shortest next to the M1 bazooka. A magazine size of 1 and an armor penetration of 127, which is also like pretty good. It's not as good as some of the best are, but it's getting up there. Definitely. So for the M9 bazooka, yeah, I really like it. The sight especially helps it feel a lot more like you can do stuff effectively from further range compared to the M1 bazooka. It's just overall just a total upgrade from the M1 bazooka, and it deserves a A tier. It's going right into A tier. Alright, the next launcher on the list is going to be the Sturmpistol for Germany, which is a flare gun, flare guns which were converted into grenade launchers because they had a ton of like flare guns just laying around, and they're like, hey, what can we do with these? So they made them into a improvised anti-tank weapon pretty much. The stats are going to be the following on it: a muzzle velocity of 50, a rounds per minute of and yeah, 50 is like second lowest in the entire class, so not very good. Rounds per minute of 48, which is average. A reload time of a staggering 6 seconds, which is just disgusting. You can really feel the reload time with this weapon. You can really feel like every agonizing second of it playing, which usually results in you getting shot, by the way. Spoiler alert. And then the recoil is 320 plus 80. Magazine size of 1. and it has an armor penetration of 70, which is kind of terrible. It's kind of not very good at all. So what do I think about the Sturm pistol? I just don't think it's worth it compared to the other launcher we're about to talk about in a minute, which is much better for attacking vehicles. The Sturm pistol is like the Piat, where you have to be closer to the enemy vehicle to make it actually effective against it. But unlike the Piat, whenever you hit with the Sturm pistol, it's like you're throwing a pebble at a tank. It never really feels like you're actually significantly damaging a vehicle when you use the Sturm pistol. It's more so effective at destroying the crew members, which is not as useful at all compared to just destroying the vehicle straight up. Because, all it takes is 2 guys to keep a tank running. If he gets out and fixes his tank and he's got a gunner and a driver, that's literally all you need to have a tank still be combat effective and still be a threat. And the Sturm pistol does not deliver on that, does not deliver on, fixing that problem, right? Even the AT rifles, even the bad AT rifles, have more of a chance because at least you have the accuracy and don't have to rely on the luck of the splash damage, taking out those crew members for you, right? However, it is pretty decent. I found it is pretty decent in anti-infantry. And, also being able to run with it is a great bonus, which is considerable to keep it in a certain tier, right? But that is kind of contradictory to, being great at anti-infantry, because why would you need an anti-tank weapon to be good at anti-infantry? That's like stupid, That's like the main reason I think the grenade launcher, for the Japanese that I was talking about, like, oh my god, was that 2 or 3 months ago? 2 or 3 weeks ago? I can't even remember. I think that's the main reason that sucks as an AT weapon and works better as a primary slot. Because, like, why would you want anti-infantry when you're specifically wanting something for an anti-vehicle role? It's, it's oxymoronal, whatever, right? So for all of these reasons considered, I'm going to have to give the Sturm pistol a C tier. Alright, the next launcher we have on the list is going to be the GRB-39, which is technically an anti-tank rifle. However, it is retrofitted to shoot heat rockets, which definitely raised the effectiveness. Yeah, definitely did. So yeah, the stats are going to be muzzle velocity 70, which is actually pretty good looking at this list. It's way better than the average of around, 60, whatever. Although there isn't really much of an average in the whole list, I have to say. It's like kind of a very mixed up sort of medium of numbers, right? The rounds per minute is going to be 48, which is average. The reload time is going to be a staggering, however, 4.6, which you can definitely feel. How it actually feels to use when you reload it is sort of like using a musket, right? You have to like stuff a rocket down the barrel. It's really funny, honestly. But honestly, I don't think it's bad because you can use it at long ranges pretty effectively, where reload time is sort of inconsequential as long as you don't get noticed by the tank or an enemy. The armor penetration on this one is going to be another 20 question mark, because apparently it was made in medieval times before they could write the stats without being super obtuse. So yeah, what do I think about the GRB-39? Also, excuse me. It has the bonus of probably the single highest amount of selectable ranges on the site in probably any launcher in the game, besides some premium launchers. You get all the way from 50 meters to like, I think 300 or 400 meters, something like that. Which, yeah, it's pretty effective at, usually. It's pretty effective at, if you're hitting the weak spots. But what do I think about it? I honestly love it. Like, I think it's probably the single best feeling launcher in BR2, besides the bazooka, but it feels better than the bazooka. I'm gonna be like really biased to this one, but it is my personal favorite of like the Panzerfaust launchers in like all of Enlisted. You know, before we get to the Panzerfaust tier of things, right? It is my favorite. It is really satisfying to use, just like posting up somewhere, doing like you would with the Type 97, posting up in a window somewhere behind some cover, and just getting some kills with it. You have 20 total ammo, so you can kind of go crazy and just like on top of actually attacking vehicles like you should. You can attack regular soldiers too if you wanted to, just for the lulz. But I would not recommend it if it's like I I would not recommend doing that if there was like a whole squad you were fighting, because the reload time is like super punishing if you actually do get into any sort of direct eyesight combat with it. You know what I mean? But yeah, I know you guys are probably gonna call me crazy and stupid for this, but you know it's my list. I'm gonna put the GRB into A tier. It is probably the best BR2 anti-tank launcher. You know, it's got quadruple the ammo capacity of the M1 bazooka, and I feel like it packs as much of a punch as it does, on top of the benefit of having a much better sight picture and way more adjustable sights. So yeah, it's gonna be A tier for the GRB 39. Alright, the next launcher on the list is going to be the Panzerfaust 60, the 60-meter version of it, which is also slightly less powerful. The stats are going to be 45 muzzle velocity, 42 rounds per minute, which, yeah, the muzzle velocity is also super low, super duper low. I think it's, yeah, the lowest in class. So, yeah, kind of womp womp with that stat, but you're not going to be using it at long ranges anyway, as historically shown, too. Rounds per minute is also the lowest, but it doesn't really feel like that. It feels like you can get off shots decently fast with it. The reload time for replacing the nozzle on it, even though in real life they were disposable rocket launchers. But regardless, like the reload time is 3.3, which is actually on the faster side of things. Or, you know, not as bad as some of the longer reloads are. Magazine size of 1, of course. And the armor penetration is vague. It's going to be another 20 question mark on that one. Which, yeah, I'm sorry I have to, like, say that dumb stuff, but, like, guys, I swear, I can't. It's like trying to understand that specific stat is like trying to read Egyptian hieroglyphics, okay? It's just like being super vague. You know, it's just like, it doesn't want to work with me, you know? But, yeah, what do I think about the Panzerfaust 60? It's great. It's great. You know, it's multi-army. It's Germany and Russia both, which, yeah, I think is really lazy of the developers to just give them other countries' launchers. I feel like Russia at least has to have, like, an actual man-portable rocket launcher, right? Unless I'm just, since I'm not a history buff, unless I'm just tripping, like, they made at least one, or probably at least some type of prototype during the war and weren't just, you know, making those crappy anti-tank rifles and using bazookas the entire time, right? You know, if I am tripping, though, tell me in the comments. Maybe you know something about history. But yeah, the Panzerfaust 60, I love it. You know, I love it. It's just obviously not as slapdash amazing as the 100 is, right? But it's sort of, if you hit a BR2 or BR1 tank with it, and even some BR3 tanks, they're just gone. They're just gone. Like, hit it literally anywhere in sort of the backside or like the back quarter view of the tank, and it's instantly dead almost every time. Almost every time. So yeah, it's going to be an obvious easy A tier for the Panzerfaust. Everybody knows it, everybody loves it. Pretty much everybody with some sense, when you're playing Germany and Russia, you're going to be equipping your AT with Panzerfaust as soon as you get in BR3. You know, you should, you should always. But yeah, it's going to be easy A tier for the Panzerfaust 60. And, yeah. Alright, the next weapon does not even need an introduction. Like, if you've played Enlisted, you know how absolutely legendary the Panzerfaust 100 is. If you play Russia or Germany at all. and have gotten to that point in the game, or at least have played some of the events, right? You know how absolutely legendary the Panzerfaust 100 is. Yeah, it's okay. Let me not spoil anything for the stats, even though you probably already know. But the stats, it's going to be muzzle velocity 62, which is pretty bad, like second lowest, or no, excuse me, yeah, like 34th lowest in like the entire class. Rounds per minute is identical at 42. Reload is identical at 3.3. Magazine size 1, obviously. The penetration, the armor penetration, is insane. 220. 220. Anything you shoot with this that isn't like a BR5 super tank, right, is gonna instantly, bro, it's just dead. It's gone. It's gone. Like, the times I've used it, in events, because that's like the only times I've used it, and like the only times I've got to use the Panzerfaust to, all the like BR4 and 5 stuff. But yeah, it's just absolute S tier, just like peak. Just you can't get better. You cannot get any better anti-tank in the entire game than the Panzerfaust 100. I literally, like, I can't even say anything else about it. It's just good. It's just S tier. It's the best. Panzerfaust, my beloved. That's it. And then lastly, or I think semi-lastly, I can't remember if this weapon actually comes before or after the Panzerfaust 100. We have the RP ZB-43 Offenwaffe, also known as the Panzer Schreck. I think it's the Panzer Schreck. It could be a different weapon, but yeah, the stats for it are going to be 110 muzzle velocity, 48 rounds per minute, which is average. A reload time of 3.1, which is on the faster side, actually. A little bit faster than 3.3. Magazine size of 1, and an armor penetration on it of 200, which is also insane. Like, most things you hit with this are not going to survive being hit with it. You know what I mean? Most vehicles, they're not really getting out with that unless it's like a BR5, super tank, thing I was talking about earlier. It's a multi-faction too, so every faction besides Russia, unless I'm misremembering, has access to the Panzerfaust. Which, yeah, if it is actually the Panzerfaust, I think they should add the heat shield. I'm sorry, it's just like, it's too iconic of a feature of the weapon, and they just left it off completely. But yeah, the Panzerfaust is basically the M9 bazooka, but on steroids, which is probably why they gave it to allies, even though I'm pretty sure there's some other anti-tank weapon they could have given them. But yeah, the Panzerfaust is good. It's really good. It's really good. Not S tier, because S tier is strictly for the Panzerfaust 100, but it's definitely A tier. It's obviously better than stuff like the GRB 39, so take the sort of left to right placement on the tier list at the very end with a grain of salt. But it's good. I like it. Whatever. Panzerfaust, yeah, whatever. A tier. All right, so the semi-final rocket launcher we have on the list is going to be the the Type 5 Japanese rocket launcher, which has a muzzle velocity of 82, which is really getting up there, but is just identical to the M1 bazooka. A rounds per minute of 48, which is average. Reload time of 3.2. A 0.1 second faster than like the Panzerfaust. So, okay, I guess it's weird how they do stats like that, to where like literally a microsecond more is like worthy of even being a statistical difference, when they probably could have just rounded it down to being 3 anyway, and I don't think literally anybody would have noticed. But yeah, magazine size of 1, of course, which I probably, why, I'm tripping out right now. Why did I even mention the magazine size for any of the rocket launchers? Like, it's gonna be 1. I think there's only, even for premium squads, there's only like one single rocket launcher that has a magazine size that's more than 1, right? But the armor penetration on it is going to be 100. It's going to have 100 armor penetration. And yeah, the Type 5 rocket launcher, which is sort of like the weird... I'm trying to remember what I called it. I called it like the... with my time using it, which I still do use it on at least one of my squads, I think. I'm drawing a blank of like the weird nickname I came up with it. Yeah, it was like the ear swab gun, like, you know those big ear swabs you use to clean your ears out with? Cotton swabs, yeah? It's the cotton swab gun. You get close to a tank, you pop out of a bush, because, you know, that's what you do as Japanese in the Pacific, you know, guerrilla warfare and everything. And then you shoot the tank, and then it explodes. It's that simple. You know, I honestly, spoiler, I prefer it over the Type 4 rocket, but I don't think it's necessarily better for it in most situations. And in most situations, because the inaccuracy on it is really noticeable. Like, if you try to use this, inaccuracy and lack of sights both is super noticeable. If you try to use it in any sort of range further than, like, coughing at somebody, you're not going to hit the rocket. But I think the closer you are with anti-tank, until you get into the further, like, BR4 and 5 anti-tank weapons, the closer you are with them, the better, usually. So yeah, what do I think about the Type 5 rocket launcher? The cotton swab gun. I think it's a B tier. Yeah, honestly, I like it. I like it. Alrighty then, so for the last rocket launcher, it's going to be the Type 4 rocket launcher, which actually has a slight difference in the warhead boom. Instead of it being 18, it's 20. Ooh, 2 points more. Amazing. Such an upgrade. I don't actually know if this makes any gameplay difference at all. Like, genuinely. I honestly, I've not really noticed any difference when I've used either of them. But, yeah. Muzzle velocity is 66, so, a bit harder to track targets at range, which is kind of antithetical to the rest of the gun's design. Because I do think it is better to use at longer ranges in the Type 5. They're sort of side grades to each other, though. A rounds per minute of 42, which isn't really that much of a problem because you're going to be sitting back anyway. A reload time of 2.8, which is actually one of the tied for the fastest in class with the M9 bazooka. Excuse me, no, it would be the it would be tied with the M9, but it's not the fastest. And an armor penetration of 80, so 20 less, but that 20 less is noticeable. It's more of like, if you want to be more cautious with your AT gunners and like sit way further back, or if you just want to, like, if you want the tank destroyed in that minute and you just somehow have the space and time to run up to it. I usually, like, how I usually do things with the AT squads is, or if there's more than one AT in a squad, which is rare, but I think at least one of them's like that, is just try and mix the rocket launchers so I can, you know, have the specific one I need at a specific time in a, you know, certain situation, which is how I think they intended you to do it, because the Type 5 and the Type 4 both perfectly complement each other, with the Type 4 being, you know, the more cautious long-range rocket launcher that you're going to be trying to knock out weak spots with, while the Type 5 is the getting very close, I'm going to pillage you and destroy all your stuff type rocket launcher that you run up to the tank with and blast it, while, you know, the Type 5, the older brother, is going to be more cautious and sort of sit back and have an introspective look at the tank before blowing it up, instead of just ramming into it like an angry train, right? So yeah, it's going to be a B tier for the Type 4 rocket. I don't really consider any of the Japanese anti-tank besides the Panzerschreck, which isn't even their exclusive thing, right? Which I think they should maybe add, like, you know, BR4 or 5 for anti-tank. Like, there's some other stuff they could probably use for it. But yeah, they're not really, like, A or S tier material. So, yeah, sorry about that. Japan rocket launchers specifically. Alrighty then, that's going to be my tier list. I'm going to display it on screen right now while doing the outro. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. And if you're interested in hearing my other thoughts about the other weapons, check out my pistol tier list. You know, it's definitely probably not going to be as polished as this one is, but, you know, I like it. You know, I like doing these videos. It takes a ton of effort for me to power through my, you know, depression and sickness both to even make these. So I appreciate the fact that you guys, even the small amount it is, you know, even the 100 something people who watch the pistol video, right? That you guys even watch these. I really do appreciate that. And sorry if you disagree with my opinions. I don't really care, etc., etc. I will see you guys next time.
Thanks, mate.